Anyway, hey guys, hey, thanks for being here. It means a lot to me because I like to see the participation we're getting from the club, and I like to offer these things so that we all help each other out and learn from each other. Here comes Steve Barnes. Let me see, he's coming in. So Steve, let me see. Wait for him to connect to audio now. There we go. I see Steve. All right, like I said, we'll get going. But anyway, hey, everyone, thanks for showing up again. I'm glad that we can all participate tonight. So the background on this is I was out flying, as we all have, out towards Taylorville, out in the local area, and I hear Springfield Approach is talking to the jumpers over in Taylorville, and we were going to go over there and do some touch and goes. And so I hear them over there doing jump operations, and I thought, you know what? I don't really have much of a clue about how they're doing that, and I don't want to be have any conflict with those guys. And I have deconflicted in the past. I did go over there once, and I just said, hey, I'm going to stay 5 miles away until you tell me every last guy's on the ground. I figure that's probably the best thing to do. But anyway, with that said, I thought, you know what? This is something I don't know about. I want to know more about how they conduct operations so that, yes, I can avoid it. But what if we're cross country and we can't avoid it? In other words, what if we have to land somewhere? What if we got an emergency and that is the best airport, and it just happens happens to be some parachute operations going on? So, just a number of questions that kind of came up in my mind. So I just thought, hey, this is a great opportunity. So I called over to Taylorville and I said, hey, you guys got somebody that can talk to us and kind of give us a brief on this stuff? And they said, sure enough. So Brian and I got hooked up, and Brian is the jump pilot for the parachute club over in Taylorville. And I'll let Brian talk a little bit more about how long he's been doing it. But he's very, very kind enough to be with us tonight to kind of give us his deal on, on what he sees from his perspective, and deconflicting and best practices and things he can recommend us to do. So with that said, let me see, Brian, you've been doing this at Taylorville, you said, for 3 years, right?
I've been at Taylorville for 3 years, correct?
Okay, but you've been flying jump pilots for how long? For 13 years, right?
Yeah, 13 years. I actually started in 1998 and flew with the club up until about 2000. I had a life change when 2 girls came on board.
Yeah.
And I took a pause in flying skydivers up until about 4 years ago, and started gotten involved with the club 3 years ago, and here I am. So yeah, awesome. About 13 years total flight time with them. So
awesome. Now, how much time do you have? Is the majority of your flight time? And the reason I ask is because I know some guys try to build flying time by carrying jumpers, but is it an easy way to build time, or is it you're working your butt off? I know that.
Yeah. So I'm setting just shy of 1,000 hours. So okay. to give you a little history, I got my license when I was 17.
Okay.
So I've been flying. I'm 57 now. So obviously I've been around for a while as far as flying, but I haven't put on a lot of time because I took a pause, like I said.
Sure.
And back in the day, we didn't fly. Actually, jump flights didn't seem to occur as often as they are today. There's more people involved in the sport. It's more people are aware of it, so we're getting a lot of flight operations. Okay. Last year during the COVID hit, which was pretty much their lowest opportunities because of the rules in the state of Illinois, I was still able to put on just under 185 hours of flight time.
Wow.
And that's flying just Saturdays and Sundays.
Wow.
And with the weather still around, so I was able to get quite a bit of hours through the club. So to build hours, it's a wonderful opportunity. Okay. You can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the catch, unlike it did in the old days, you could start flying skydivers right away. Today, insurance populates everything. Okay. So the rules and requirements to start out is quite hefty. I think it's like 500 hours they want flight time.
Right.
They want 25 hour or 50 hours in a two or in the type aircraft that you're flying. In this
Oh, I
case,
see.
it's a 206, and at least 10 flight jumps is what they're looking for.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay.
Some previous experience. Uh, Funny enough, there's a company in North Carolina that started up an operation teaching people to fly skydivers
Oh,
for that
nice.
reason. It's for
Oh,
that
that's
reason.
cool. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Good. Good. Well,
how
listen.
else can you learn?
Yeah, exactly. Well, listen, thanks for the helping me introduce yourself. But anyway, I'll let you take it from here and just kind of, give us your take on our best, what we should do just to get familiar with your operation and best practices and so forth. So I'll hand it over to you.
Okay, and I'll tell you what. So just in general, just thank you everybody for giving me the opportunity to speak with you. I do represent the club unofficially. I spoke with them to that capacity, and I'll try and plug the club as often as I can. Beyond that, I'm a pilot just like you guys. Don't have a lot of hours considering the number of years that I've been flying, but I love the sport. I love the passion of flying and the opportunity to get up. Don't own my own airplane. I've been thinking about it, been trying to get into it, but putting two girls through college has been tough. And fortunately, I got one out and one just about ready to finish. So maybe if prices start to come back down, which it doesn't look like right now, maybe I'll jump and pull the trigger into that direction. But I have been flying since I was just over 17, and been with the club now for 3 years. And I do have a PowerPoint I'll kind of present to you folks.
Thank you.
If you see that.
Oh, yeah. Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who are we? Well, we're the MidAmerica Sport Parachute Club, and we are located at Taylorville, Tango Alpha Zulu. The club actually, if I can click on this, the club, a little bit about them. The club was organized in 1971, and this year is actually their 50th year anniversary. They have about 15 members that come and go at times, but 15 members make up the club. It's a typical club activity officer requirement. They do have a number of what we call front jumpers, people that are in the area, whether it's usually state operation, like Missouri, Tennessee, Kentucky, Indiana. People come from all around, just like they do up in Chicago area or St. Louis area to jump. So we might see on the average of 50 to 100 different jumpers come through the club every year. Our biggest event is in October, where we kind of wrap up the season. They have a boogie that they bring a caravan out of Chicago. And of course, with that, you can carry 14, I think it's 14 passengers on board. It's 12 or 14, I can't remember right offhand. But they get a big crew that comes in. They spend a 3-day weekend there, and they camp out and they all jump pretty much all day long. Keeps that caravan running constantly. So you can see a picture there. The club has the south end of the hangars at the airport there. They own 3 of the T hangars, and they've actually got a complex on the inside where their office is situated. And as I said, we run April 1 through October 31st, and it's all weekends. So weather permitting, we operate. Matter of fact, we were there this past Saturday. They had a new training opportunity. They had they teach IAD, which is instructor assisted deployment, and then accelerated freefall, or AFF. And it's 2 choices. One, you basically start low at altitude and you gain confidence and raise up from say 4,000, or I'm sorry, 5,000 up to 10,000 in various stages. The other way is the accelerated, where they start at 10,000 and you free fall instantly on your first training. So it's kind of dependent on the person which way he wants to go. But so the club does have the opportunity for fun jumpers, people that just want to come out to the club and pay a fee to jump, whether it's 5,500 or 5,000 or 10,000 AGL. Another option is tandem instruction. You pay $250 and you strap onto an instructor, and they take you to 10,000 and they let you free fall with them and experience the opportunity to skydive for the first time. A lot of people do that before they make the decision to start flying or skydiving on their own. And then in addition to the training or the training they go through in the front jumping every year, we have demonstrations, last year being the exception with COVID. They usually do 4 to 6 different demonstrations every year. We do the Forest Park Balloon Race. And then of course, other events in and around the area, whether it's in Arthur, Illinois or Decatur or whatever places they have on schedule. So that's kind of the club. How do we get where we're going? They've got a 1969 206 Stationair. You might hurry at 3907 Golf. They've had that plane probably, I'm gonna say, I think it's 10 years now. It's been a good plane. We just put a brand new or rebuilt Continental in it. And so it's an IO 540, does us well. The plane, we have 2 altitudes that we fly to generally, 5,500 MSL and 10,500. You can see it takes about 6 minutes to get to 55 and 19 to get to 10.5. So it's obvious that once we get past that 9,000 feet, it really starts bogging down in terms of how long it takes to get up there. So we kind of cap ourselves. We say 12,000 is our limit. We occasionally will go up to 11.7 for those that want to do free fall a little longer, because it only takes you about a minute to free fall from 10,000 down to 4,000 feet. So it's a pretty quick trip. But our typical turn time is about 25 minutes. That seems to be on the pretty well average. So it just depends on the circumstances and how many people we have on board. The 206 can haul in a normal capacity. It has 6 seats, but because we pull the 6 seat or the 5 seats out, and we attach legal seatbelts to the aircraft, every occupant has a seatbelt. We can haul 6 skydivers plus the pilot, so it gives us a little more weight capacity to work with. And then you can see on that bottom left corner there, this is with 5 skydivers, so it gets pretty crowded. 6 being the obvious, they're really crowded. So, anyways, but yeah, that's the 206. Anybody that deals with aviation knows what sectional charts are, and it's funny. In the early days, it seems sectional charts were the only way we flew. Now with the electronic computer devices, we're tending to use more GPS on board, whether it's ForeFlight or Garmin or whatever the case is, and you're starting to see less and less paper. So you have the option, whether it's paper or it's the e-boards, and I think a lot of us are losing that edge to knowing what's around the airport based on what is in the sectional chart. And I threw this view in here just as a reminder. Taylorville obviously is a skydive organizational activity club or location. It has the typical parachute symbol there to let you know that the parachute operation is in process or it is in use. So it's kind of a handy image to see. Something new. This is actually a screenshot from ForeFlight. Plugging them, but this is something new that I just picked up on mine recently, is that they around the US they will actually provide you a little bit of an image view of parachute operations, showing you at least in this one it's ground to 15,000. We publish ground to 15 because when the caravan comes down, it actually I think they jump at 14.5. So I think it's kind of handy.
So you can find that on ForeFlight?
This is on ForeFlight, yeah.
Oh, wow.
This one is an actual icon that you can pick on ForeFlight.
Yeah, I did not know that. Okay.
Yeah. And to be honest, this is something that they must have just recently done because I just picked up on it here recently. So.
Okay, yeah.
I know that Veneer, I think it's pronounced Veneer, Illinois. They have a skydive club, but or a skydive club up there as well, and they're flying. And I believe they might have a symbol on theirs, but Logan has just recently started some skydive operations. They moved down from Veneer down to Logan there in Lincoln, Illinois. for the time being. I think they're bouncing between the two places, and that one does not represent it because it's not published. So this is a kind of a situational awareness view of Taylorville. Of course, we've got 2 or 3 runways, 2 asphalts and a grass runway. So this kind of just, I show this kind of as an opportunity to lead into where the skydivers jump into on a regular basis. So this image here on the lower left corner is the Taylorville Airport, and this exploded view is the north edge of the airport. So from a situational standpoint, this is the T hangars that we operate out of. We have a long parking lot right here that all of our vehicles are parked at, and then we can come and go with the aircraft right at this location. This is a large 2-acre field here, not really large, but it's about 2.5 acres that the club owns. This is it's kind of a one drop zone where the experts, the experienced jumpers will land at. Takes a minimum of 200 jumps to be able to get this and a C or D license that's issued through the USPA. It's kind of an obstacle ruling requirement in order for you to be able to land here. So the reason I bring this up is we have 3 spots. This is where the experienced people are, and this is where everybody below C or D license. So this is your students and or your A and B license holders, someone with less than 200 jumps. They may use the grass runway on an east-west heading, or they may run right alongside runway 18 and 36. They stay away from the windsocks. This is a concrete pillar device sitting down. There's a bunch of concrete down here, so they tend to stay away from that. But they will typically use the parallel path to runway 18 and 36. So when you come into the airport area, and skydivers are in the air, this is pretty much one of 3 places that they will land. But as a rule, once they have deployed their chutes, they will not cross the runway if they are less than traffic pattern altitude. So 1,600 feet MSL roughly, so you're looking at about 1,000 feet. They will not cross that runway. At least that's what they're told not to do. So other than that, this is kind of a daily operational thing, kind of give you some idea here. We use runway 18 and 36. We very seldomly use 9 and 27 just because you got to go lengthy ways from the runway or from the hangar, excuse me, to get out there. So when you're in and around us, that's typically where the aircraft's operating from, 18 and 36, and that's pretty much where all the skydivers are jumping in and out of. Once we depart, the plane will stay close to the airport. All of our turns are within traffic pattern. And we do that mainly for obviously engine out conditions under heavy loads, so we can make it back to the airport. As we continue to climb, that circular pattern, or in this case, airport pattern, traffic pattern, will tend to expand out to no more than 2 miles. Still enough that we can glide back to with no issues under load. Of course, as we get higher, then obviously once we get above 4,000 feet, then the skydivers could technically exit the aircraft if they had to. At 3,000 feet, we're making radio contact with Springfield. If Springfield's in service there for a little while when COVID was going on and they went reduced operations, we were working with Kansas City. And then we will stay with Kansas City for radar contact all the way up and back down so that we have constant visibility to other aircraft that are coming and going. And then as we climb up, as I said earlier, we have 2 altitudes, 5,500 that we operate out of and 10,700. When we get within about 2 minutes of that actual jump run, we'll contact the local CTF, and make our announcements to let you guys know, or let other pilots know that we're within 2 minutes of an actual jump activity and then what that altitude will be. And then as we get within a minute of that, we make the same contact for both ATC and CTF, letting everyone know our intentions. And it's really much at that time when we have to start declaring if we're going to make a deviation or if we're going to hold off the skydivers based on safety conditions. Working with Springfield, they do a fantastic job updating us. Obviously with ADSB, I carry on board, so I can at least pick up other aircraft that are using ADSB. If there is no ADSB, it makes it pretty impractical. But so I have a somewhat of an idea of who's around us, but Springfield does a really good job of informing us. And as a matter of fact, just yesterday or Sunday, we had an aircraft come in, and fortunately, they were kind of just giving me some updates on the aircraft coming in out of the west, and letting us know that they didn't know whether he was landing or not. So with that information, we're able to at least start locating them, and then if possible, make contact with them. And then in that case, we held off the drop until after we knew for sure that the aircraft was landing. Beyond that, all of our jump runs are at the assigned altitude or into the wind. Predominantly, it seems like we either get a northwest wind up top around 10,000. It seems to pretty much come out of the west or northwest. As we get down, then it becomes more surface dependent. But so we'll make that run into the wind once we know that the conditions are safe. As I said, we'll announce Taylorville traffic, skydive activity in progress, jumpers away, use caution at or below whatever altitude that may be. And then we'll stay with ATC all the way back down to around 5,000 feet, and then we'll break off for advisory. I may have mentioned this during the free fall. It takes about a minute for the skydivers to descend from 10,000 down to about 3,000 to 4,000 feet. Most of them will deploy at that 4,000. They have automated devices on there that I believe if they drop below 2,500 feet, it'll automatically trigger on it. And it might be 2,000 too, but it will automatically trigger for them. So when they once they deploy their chutes, as I said, they're pretty much at and above traffic pattern. So they have a better idea of you, maybe more so than you of them, because when they're free falling, you simply can't pick them up. It's not until they deploy their chutes. And I'll be honest, even when the chutes are open, I have a hard time picking them up unless they're a colorful chute when I'm above them. So sometimes it is hard to see, but if you're going to see it, it's going to be once they deploy the chutes. And then at that time, once they've deployed their chutes, they're going to start setting up their patterns upwind of the drop zone and start their approach no different than what we do with our standard pattern. They always make left-hand patterns, and it makes it a little bit easier to identify what direction they're going to come in or go out of. So, but what I like to tell most people when they're flying into the airport is that if you see skydive activity and you're landing, they're really going to pick one of two locations. There are three locations, and that being the east-west runway or parallel to north and south on the westward side, or as I said, over behind the T hangars. So, but they will remain clear of the traffic pattern over the top of the airport, and kind of keep your area clear. So. I threw a couple do's and don'ts. We can talk about some of this stuff, but what I like to think is for everybody is we need to know as much about the airport as we do. This includes just a general glance at the sectional charts or the aims or whatever information you have available to you, so that you know what you're expected to know when you go into that location. Begin contacting or listening on CTAF as soon as possible. Occasionally we get people that come in and they don't make contact with us, and very seldom do we even hear them talking, maybe because they don't have radio communications. We have a group of ag planes that fly in and out of our area quite a bit, and they do not use radio communications, so they are a real hazard to us and for that matter anyone else. So you have to really kind of keep an eye on them. But it certainly it's beneficial if you're communicating with the CTAF frequency, and at least if you want to reach out to the jump plane pilot, it's handy for you as well as us to know what the intentions of everyone is. And then, of course, fly your normal traffic patterns, and you just keep a helpful eye out with the skydivers. Um, and then I mentioned it earlier, when it comes to don'ts, using GPSs, pay attention to your sectional charts so that you know if you're flying over the top of an airport that holds operations with skydivers. And one of the big thing is simply don't fly blindly through airspace. It's happened from time to time. Skydivers are great bullets, and unfortunately, they tend to walk away from an accident where the pilot and the occupants of those aircrafts don't. So keep that in mind when you're transitioning across the sky. That whatever airspace you're going to go pass through, know what's in that airspace before you get to it, and certainly don't be afraid of the airspace though, because we certainly all can exist together. We just have to do a really good job of communicating with one another. Other than that, that's just a quick view. I'm certainly, I wasn't certain what to throw in for the conversation, but I thought I'd add a few things in there.
That's awesome. I got a couple of questions for you, and we'll take some questions from the group too, just to kind of summarize a few things. That circle you showed on ForeFlight, you guys could be jumping from anywhere in that circle, basically, right? You tried, and what'd you say? Is that 5 miles?
That's actually the ATA. Yeah, that's the air traffic area there. So that's a 5-mile radius.
Okay. And you could and you try to stay within that typically, or how close are you?
So, I mean, so legally the club or the skydivers can extend beyond that area. They can go outside the ATA. They can transition into other locations legally with no issues. It becomes more of a safety issue more than it does a locality. But for example, on a very windy day, we can take them to 10,000 feet and go 15 miles away, and they can technically fly back to the airport. Given a wind condition situation, that's something they could do. Is that a smart thing to do? No, not necessarily. Right. But what we normally do is like I said, we'll fly within about a 2-mile arc around the airport center.
Okay.
And then we, depending on the wind conditions, it may be right over the top of the airport, or it may be a half a mile to a mile outside that, or beyond the center of the airport, where they finally may jump out. So, but it's 2 miles. 2 miles seems to be kind of the normal limit that we stop at.
And so even on a windy day, they're just going to navigate themselves according to the wind. They don't have to be carried out away from the field, like for a further distance if the winds are stronger then, right?
So most of the decisions as to how far out we go is based on experience, the skydive experience.
Okay.
If it's a new student or newer licensed pilot or a jumper, we will tend to stay as close to the center of the vicinity of the airport as possible. And we take into consideration the altitude and the speed of the wind, so that they are not doing one of two things: either riding the wind back to get to location, or they're holding their brakes to keep us over the top of the airport,
right?
And then simply just drop in. So.
Okay. So, and you said most of your operations, most of the time you're dropping west and northwest of the field. Mm-hmm. So let's just say, for example, a couple of months ago, when I'm going in there, I just elected to go, just hold off. I think there's that lake there east of Taylorville. I went and flew over that for a little bit till I knew you're on the ground. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I just thought, I'll just stay away. But let's just say, would it be safe to conduct operations where, like, you could enter a left downwind for runway 18 while parachuters were in the air, or would it just be? Would it be safe for that?
Yes, absolutely, it would be safe. Okay. Yeah. So what we normally do is once we get to altitude and once we're on final run, if we know that there's an aircraft coming into the vicinity, I will make contact as best as I can with that communication, with that aircraft. If I communicate with them, then it makes it easier, because I can let the skydivers know that there are two things: one, there's an aircraft below us, and two, I've communicated with him, and where he's going, I can let them know before they exit the aircraft. If they exit the aircraft, whether before or not,
right,
and obviously when they free fall, you're going to have that time to do whatever it is you're doing. But once they deploy, you will be able to see them. They will remain in their general vicinities over the airport,
Okay.
so that you can still conduct your operations, your landing operations safely,
Okay.
without them interfering with you or you interfering with them.
Okay.
Um, they won't, you know, uh, unless there's an extreme rare circumstances with the wind blowing significantly out of one way or another, that it
Okay.
pushes them into your downwind leg, which I've never seen that happen. I was just
Okay.
getting ready to say they will not transition your downwind leg unless you're right on top of the runway. So
I got you. Okay. So, even in that case, then, have you ever dropped jumpers with somebody in the pattern, just doing touch and goes? I mean, just occupying the pattern like that?
no, I haven't. Most people, most people, to be honest, Dan, you said it earlier. You're right. Most people are somewhat, I wouldn't say afraid. They're
Right.
just overly cautious,
Right.
and it can be done safely. It
Okay.
can be done. You can have people departing the airport. You can have people landing at the airport. The only
Right.
gotchas are the ones that choose to fly across the airport pattern. Say your winds are out of the south, and you decide you're coming in from the west, and you want to make a crossfield. You want to cross the
Yeah.
airport, midfield downwind.
Right. Right.
And those are the ones that's where it gets dangerous,
Okay.
because two things. One, obviously, once the skydivers are out, you may be coming across at an altitude of 3,000 to 4,000 feet,
Right.
maybe 2,500, but you're right in that transitional space where they're going to open up and deploy.
Okay.
And that's where it becomes dangerous, because they may not see you, they can't stop. Now they could deploy sooner, obviously, but
Yeah.
sometimes moving objects are very hard to see.
Right.
So
Right.
so
Right.
in those circumstances, if skydive, I listen. If I know someone's coming in the area, when I announce a 1 minute or 2 minute or jumpers are away, I will clearly say that do not transition over the top of the airport.
Okay.
Just to give somebody a fair warning. But that doesn't mean that they can't do a crosswind landing, or excuse
Right.
me, a crosswind to downwind.
Right.
Uh, Obviously,
Okay.
that's a safe procedure. So
Yeah, I think I would still elect to not do pattern work while jumpers are in the air, but just for peace of mind, the way you guys are set up, ideally, is that in a perfectly, both operations can happen at the same time.
yeah,
That's the
yeah.
way they're supposed to happen. Okay.
Yeah, and they do. Don't get me wrong. I mean,
Right.
there have been several cases already where people have at our airport have landed in the pattern when I have a skydiver that's exited the aircraft.
Yeah.
It's not a you can't do. It's
Right.
definitely
Right. Right.
it works as long as there's good communication.
Yeah.
So
Yep. I think that's one of the key takeaways with something like that. And so, just a couple of quick things. Are you guys NOTAMed, or I know when we spoke earlier, you said something about a NOTAM once a year, but if a guy was going up to fly tomorrow, for planning purposes, how would they know there's going to be jump operations going on at, like, say, 3 o'clock this afternoon?
the NOTAM is classified, or it actually is published the first of the year. They're
Okay.
required to file with the local air traffic control. So that's Springfield.
Okay.
So they file it as weekend jump activities only.
I see.
There are occasional times where they'll do a Friday jump, and I believe they have also published those particular events when they have done them. But usually the NOTAMs are for the weekends only.
Okay. And so if weekend flyers out there, whether it be Taylorville or somewhere else, and we say, hey, there's jump operations going on at this airport, even in a different state, then that person wouldn't see it in a NOTAM per saying, hey, there's good jump operations at 2 o'clock this afternoon. They just have to be aware that, hey, if I'm going near that airspace, I need to listen to the CTAF, most
That
likely.
is right. Yeah.
Okay.
The published NOTAMs are for weekends, and they publish. I'm not sure if they give an exact time, but usually it's sunrise or an hour after sunrise before sunset. So
Okay. All right, cool. And you said you guys are in contact with Kansas City the entire time? Kansas City and Springfield, is that right?
Just Springfield.
Okay.
We deal with Springfield only, unless Springfield operations are not are not open. So then we'll contact with Springfield. Or excuse me, Kansas City.
Okay, I got you. Good. Let me see. What else did I have? Let me see. So yeah, you talked about watching airplanes on ADSB. I assume you've got something like Stratus or something like that, so you can see the traffic on your iPad.
Yes. Yeah, I
Good.
have. Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, good. Very, very helpful. And then how long does it take for them if they deploy at 4,000 feet? How long does it take for them to go to the ground, land after they deploy?
So the actual so once they deploy, the actual a lot of it depends on the wind. But if they and the size of the chute, for example, we had a gentleman just this past weekend. He had they call it a size 95, and that's the physical size of the I forgot it's the length width combination, but it's basically the size of the overall chute. That's very small. Most of them are flying 190, so he had a 95.
I see.
He opened at 10,000 feet. He deployed at 10,000 feet.
Wow.
He actually was on the ground before I got on the ground. So
Oh, really?
yeah,
Wow.
so he was in a quick spiral descent.
Okay.
So the size of the chute dictates how fast you're going to get
I
down.
see.
So in his case, he was pretty quick. But most jumpers, I think that if they deploy at say 4,000, even 3,000 feet, once they deploy, they could be on the ground in short of just a couple minutes. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. And then do you try to stay airborne until the last jumper's down, or do you
No.
anything like that?
No, I don't. It's funny. It's most of the fun jumpers. They usually beat me down. The only time I can get down at the same time that they do is if it's a tandem jumper with a student or with a paid jumper. They usually the two of us come down at the same time, say from 10,000 feet. But
I see.
But no, the only time I typically will stay airborne is if we have what we call a cross country, a known situation where they want to jump a distance from the airport. Then I will stay with them, just kind of as a personal safety measure to ensure that somebody doesn't fly up on them. So.
Okay. Yeah, cool. And then I would assume most places, if we're going cross country, we're probably going to conduct operations pretty much the same as you guys, right? I mean, there wouldn't be anything significantly different about that.
Yeah, I can't speak for others, but I think that I would think that the operations are very similar. I can say that I flew it. The first place I started jumping out of, or excuse me, flying jumpers was at Greenville, and it seems that they have evolved. They went from Greenville to Vandalia, which was Archway, and then they went from basically over. Everybody kind of merged over to Taylorville, and that's where they're at. But it seems like the operations at all three of the airports are very similar in fashion. So
cool. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, listen, I'll open it up. Let me see if you want to take your screen. Let me see if I can. I don't know if you can stop your. There we go. I'll just open it up. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Brian? Just raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Yeah, when he what's his procedure for when he leaves the altitude to come down? Do you come down at a real steep angle? Do you stay in a pattern, cross over the airport to enter a left downwind, or how do you do that?
Yeah, so most of the time, I say most of the time, I will descend. I crab down is what I basically do. I crab and drop the plane down. I just from a personal perspective, I usually manage about a 300 manifold temperature on the cylinders, so that I don't supercool the engine. And then I will generally enter just like everybody else. It may be a high left downwind, or if depending on where I am relative to the conditions of the wind, it may be a normal entry of 45 or a normal entry. But a lot of times I will try and make a very high descent. If I know nobody else is in the area, it will be a very high descent into my downwind leg. Just to drop. Now I have to admit, and there are times too, like most people, where I'll make a straight in landing on the runway, depending on how far away I am. So.
Good question, Chuck.
And you announce that straight in?
I do.
You're not-
I announce all my flights. Yes. I like to think that I'm very verbal on the radio.
Yeah,
Okay.
it sounds like it'd be a great idea.
And it sounds like you're awfully good with the engine too, because you're not shock cooling it and stuff like that. But I was kind of curious about how you manage that airplane.
Yeah, no, it's a nice aircraft, and it's not my airplane, but I treat it like my airplane. And that's why I've always told the club. I said when I started, I said, I don't know how quickly you want me to come down, but this is what I'm going to come down. And if this doesn't work, then we can work with it or adjust it. But their A&P, after they put the new engine in there, I started the year before the new engine, and I think it's been about 2 years now. And that the engine was put in. So I worked with the A&P and told him what I was going to do. And
Oh, good.
they were all very happy with the performance. So it was a new break-in. We had to go through the standard break-in process, and wow, was that an experience. So
Yeah, we've been through those that time period before.
And you do 100-hour inspections on the airplane?
We do 100 hours as along with the annuals, correct. And I'm trying to think, 100 hours doesn't take, it seems like it comes around, well, I can't speak for normal seasons because this will be my first normal season this year that I've been able to fly the full time. The pilot prior to me was a many-year senior gentleman who has kind of discontinued flying. So I've kind of taken over the lead pilot operations, and we're looking for a second one to help fill me in. But where was I going to go with this? So I lost the question. Sorry. But it's been it's been a good challenge. I'm trying to keep the plane as safe for them because Dan asked me the other day. He says, so in the number of years that you've been flying, have you ever had an engine out scenario? And I can say in 13 years, and I'm knocking on wood as I say it again, I have not had an engine out scenario. I like to think that I've treated that aircraft very well. So we do a good job with it.
Awesome.
Very good. It's good to hear.
Yeah, Paul, you got a question, Paul?
Diligent with your.
Let me see. Unmute yourself. There you go. The lower left. Look at the lower left corner of your screen. You should have an icon with your microphone there. There we go.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Nope. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome, man.
This is more just a curiosity question. I jumped a few times back in the late 80s, early 90s over in Taylorville, and I was always curious the dynamics of the plane as jumpers shift around in that airplane and vacate the airplane. Does the plane perform differently in the absence of 6 jumpers or someone hanging on your wing strut as you're getting over the jump site?
Yeah, it does.
Question.
It does. So every year, as you know, Paul, every year we have we have a jump safety meeting. And one of the big things that I've said for the last 2 years as a reminder to the crew is that as you're setting in the aircraft, your weight kind of dictates how the aircraft performs. And as you exit the aircraft, as you're in the back of the aircraft, as everyone moves out, you move forward so that we keep the center of gravity further forward. So that, center of gravity is a major issue always when we're flying jumpers. As they exit the aircraft, the performance of the airplane, we typically will pull back, or I typically pull back the RPMs to around 17, or on the manifold, sorry. Am I saying that right? 1700 on the RPMs is where we shoot for. And that as they exit, that tends to manage well until they hang on the wing. Then I find that I need more performance. So I need more power to keep that level flight. It's funny enough, it's not until the skydiver does his 180-degree turn around the strut that the performance of the aircraft drops significantly. It's your back is just a big windbreak. And that aircraft wants to just sink like a rock. So it takes more power, obviously, to manage that altitude. But certainly it is a major factor in the performance of the aircraft.
Yeah, great question. Anybody else?
I just want to mention that 2 weekends ago, I was sitting around and I got the FlightAware app on my phone, and I was following the club airplanes, and then I saw the Taylorville airplane, and I just kind of followed you and then snapped your head number and saw you were 206. You do quite a bit of turns just to get up to altitude. And with the summertime coming up, how long does it take for you to get up there at about 10,000 feet?
Well, normally we can get up to altitude. The full event's 25, but normally we can get up there in 20 minutes. Right. For example, Sunday, it took about 19 minutes to get to altitude at 10,000 feet. It's actually 10.7 is what I shoot for. 10,000 for them and another 500 plus 2 is what I shoot for them. So they get their altitude. So 19 minutes is normal. And the temperature on the aircraft, the manifold temperatures will hover right at about 400 degrees, a little bit less. So we try to keep that in around 375 to 400. That means that we're flying up at about 100 miles an hour at a climb speed. That's what our airspeed set for. I should say 90 to 100 in that range. Obviously, as the temperature increases, we tend to flatten out a little bit. That takes a little longer to get up to altitude. So if you get a warm day, at most it might take 25 minutes on a warm day, but normally it's right around 19-20 minutes.
Yeah. Well, this is a pretty good app. So if anybody's like leaving Springfield and going down, look at the app first and see if you're active on there.
Yeah.
A good pre-flight thing. It was interesting. I sat back and you did about 6 or 7 turns finally getting up there.
Yeah, and that always seems to work out that way. It throughout the entire year. I can't say one's better than the other. It does take 4 to 6 evolutions, just depending on how far out you want to go to get to that 10,000 feet. We went up to 11.7 one time yesterday, and to go that extra 1,000 feet, it took about 2 minutes, or not 2 minutes. It took about, it was pretty close to about 2 minutes to get that extra 1,000 feet. So
nice. Well, cool. Is anyone else have any questions for Brian?
I got one.
Yeah.
What's your weather requirements? We have our VFR weather minimum.
Same as yours.
We use 5, is it?
Yeah, exact same as yours. Yeah, I mean, obviously no clouds. So I'm always, because of video, back in the old days, nobody thought anything of it. Today, with the way video is captured and shown on FaceTime and wherever else, as a pilot, and I mean, if everyone knows, ultimately the pilot is the responsible person. Mm-hmm. And the last thing I want is for someone that is having fun falling through the sky to record passing through clouds. So, because ultimately that'll come back on me. Mm-hmm. So 2 things. Number one, when I fly, I make it very clear to the skydivers that I'm not going to drop you if there's a cloud below me. And number 2, I won't fly if I won't ever pass above a cloud layer. I still stay at my 500 feet below or 1,000 feet above. So that's just it's a safety measure to ensure. I do the same. There's the gentleman that comes in from Chicago that flies the Caravan. His rules are even stricter. If he has someone who decides to free fall through a cloud, he may opt out and say, I'm done. And then they'll finish for the day. It's unfortunately, you just can't waive that because you don't want to lose your ticket. So,
right.
Yeah.
But yeah, we follow the same requirements that you guys do. The only exception that we have that you don't is we follow Part 105. So for operations. So.
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Anybody else? All right. Well, I guess we'll wrap it up. Brian, thank you very, very much.
I hope it helped.
Yeah, I hope so. Well, I feel better about it. I really do. I still, if I was flying over there and you guys were jumping, probably the biggest takeaways for me, one is if you're on your way up and I wasn't on my way into land, I'd probably be like, yeah, I'm going to go in and land. If you just release jumpers and knowing now that it's 4 minutes till they're on the ground, if even that, then I'll probably just like, hey, I'm just going to hang out, whatever. But also it gives me peace of mind to know that you can have to conduct both operations simultaneously, perfectly legally and perfectly safely. So that's that helps me understand the operation a lot better. And like I said, I think most of us know what happens over at Taylorville, and we may elect to avoid Taylorville or anywhere else. But, you know, we might have that day where we have to land somewhere with smoke in the cockpit or an emergency or something like that. And we're like, hey, you know, declare an emergency, call up CTAF, you know, that type of thing. So, you know, we don't want to exit off the chart altogether either, just because parachute operations are going on.
Well,
So,
and something else to keep in mind is that as you're coming into the area there, know that the skydive planes doing the same thing you're doing. They're enjoying their flying opportunities.
right.
Yesterday we had a gentleman that was calling a baseline, or actually he was about a 2 mile out, and he wanted to go ahead. He was announcing himself, and I said, just to let you know, I've got an aircraft load that we're about to drop here in less than 4 minutes, 3 to 4 minutes. He goes, okay, I'll wait until you're done. I go, no, don't, you know, don't wait.
Right. That's a good point.
Standard practice, follow your procedures.
Okay.
You know, no problem. You know, if push comes to shove, we can wait. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's not until they're outside the aircraft and falling that I can't stop anything.
Right.
So,
yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah, it just keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of coming into the airport. It's yours as much as it is ours.
Well, and that helps too, just to know the fact that you have just as much situational awareness on all the other airplanes going on, and you're not going to drop anybody into an unsafe situation either. So that, again, is a kind of a comfort factor for me.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they want to come home just like we do.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're safety first. Yeah, we've enjoyed it, or I've enjoyed it. So we'll see how long we can last the ride. But yeah, it's a fun opportunity. And if anybody knows anybody that's got high time and they're interested in learning to skydive pilot, you know, give us a holler. So
hey, that might be a factor. So awesome. Well, listen, I'll wrap it up. I appreciate that. For the club members and anyone else who's on with this, thanks for being here. It means a lot to me that you guys are as curious about this stuff. If you've got feedback from me as far as like, you know, other Zoom hangout safety proficiency topics we can do next time, or guest speakers you want to bring in, by all means, let me know. I'd be glad to hear about it. I'm all ears. So thank you all for being here. And Brian, thank you very, very much. You've really helped us tremendously.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate the learning opportunity myself. And just want to say great job on this opportunity for your members to be able to listen and do these kind of things. It's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah,
All right.
no problem. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, guys.